Welcome, everybody. We are going to be going over a full comprehensive update to everything that's going on with the conflict between Israel and Hamas, and specifically Gaza. I'm going to be going over all the updates, what's happened over the past 24 hours, and also give a very, very quick, brief explanation on who Hamas is, the recent history of what's been going on with the conflict over Palestine and Israel, and go over some very concerning statements from world leaders around the world. World leaders from the West and also from the East have chimed in on the situation to give their thoughts on what they think is going to happen next with this conflict that is definitely going to have ripple effects throughout peace throughout the world. So first, for people that don't know who Hamas is, who is Hamas? And we can see that fighting, I've got the map here, the live map. Israel has, we saw the map yesterday, there was lots of fighting happening on the Gaza Strip border in Israel. They did infiltrate Israel, but now the Israel military have regained a lot of military positions along the Gaza Strip. But we can see here, the red is still active fighting going on right now. This is the Gaza Strip here. We can see that unfortunately there is a lot of bombing happening in Gaza. Israeli PM Benjamin Netanyahu said that he's really going to send Hamas into rubble. And very interesting, an escalation that's been going on right now is up here. This is the southern Lebanon border. There has been a conflict with Hezbollah, the southern militant group here in the southern border of Lebanon, and missiles have been launched from southern Lebanon, and also Israel has sent retaliation strikes into southern Lebanon to squash the Hezbollah militant group here in southern Lebanon. So again, okay, who is Hamas? So Hamas is a Palestinian political and militant group that operates in the Gaza Strip. So it was founded in 1987 as an offshoot of the Egyptian Muslim Brotherhood. Now, Hamas has a political wing which manages the administrative affairs of the Gaza Strip, and military wing known as ad-Din al-Qassam, if I think I'm pronouncing that right, brigades, which conducts military operations. So this is the military group that has majority power in Gaza, okay? They're known as a political party by the Middle East, but they're also recognized as a terrorist organization from most Western countries. So what is their political role exactly? Well, Hamas won the Palestinian legislative elections in 2006 and has been governing the Gaza Strip since 2007 after a violent conflict with Fatah, the party of the Palestinian Authority. So also militant activities. So Hamas has been involved in various military confrontations with Israel, and its military wing carries out rocket attacks, bombings, and other militant activities against Israel military and civilian targets, which is happening right now. So designation, so it's also been designated, like I said, as a terrorist organization from the West. So many countries and international organizations, including Israel, the United States, Canada, and the European Union, have designated Hamas as a terrorist organization due to its militant activities and its charter, which called for the destruction of Israel. However, other countries and organizations have engaged with Hamas as a political entity. So again, a lot of countries like Istanbul, Turkey, Saudi Arabia, maybe a bit on the fence there. I'll get into Saudi Arabia's update in a moment. And Iran sees as a legit political party, but the West sees this as a terrorist organization. So they're trying to give you both sides, trying to give you an unbiased update and information about this conflict. So the conflict with Israel has been between Hamas and Israel as part of a larger Israeli-Palestinian conflict. Now, Hamas attacks on Israel have triggered several rounds of fighting in the Gaza Strip recently, recent years since 2007, resulting in casualties on both sides. And I'll also give you the update. Unfortunately, there's been hundreds killed on both sides in just 24 hours. Hundreds of Israelis killed, hundreds of Palestinians killed, and thousands wounded. So there's been multiple ceasefires and peace efforts, but unfortunately now, as of breaking news, those ceasefires and peace efforts have failed. So there's also ideological stance. Hamas charter initially called for the establishment of an Islamic state in Palestine and the destruction of Israel. However, in 2017, Hamas unveiled a new political document that accepted the idea of a Palestinian state along the 1967 border, but didn't recognize Israel. Okay, so Hamas continues to play a significant role in the politics and military activities in the Gaza Strip, which again is right here. And its actions and governance significantly impact the dynamics of Israeli and the Palestinian conflict. Now, again, this conflict has pretty much been going on since the dawn of ancient and modern civilization. So this is a very strategic and important geopolitical location with lots of trade routes, okay? And empires throughout history have ruled this area, okay? So it first started with ancient and medieval periods. So the land has been inhabited and controlled by various groups over millennia, including the Israelites, the Persians, Romans, Byzantines, and more recently, before World War One, the Ottoman Empire controlled the region. So then, after World War One, which Britain and French kind of teamed up and did a promise to both sides. They kind of did a double dealed them there. When you look at the history, again, I can't go into all the details. It will be hours and hours, and this is thousands of years of history. So this is a very brief update. They told pretty much Palestine that they'll have their own state, and Israel that they'll have their own state as well. But it turned out that they more sided with the Jews and let the Jews establish Zion, the Zionist movement, in the early 19th and in the late 19th and early 20th century. And the Jews, which were a minority in the area, were given the majority of the land, and this is what upset Palestine. And that's pretty much been the start of the conflict since the 20th century. Now, what happened, some more recent conflicts. The Balfour Declaration in 1917, the British government supported the establishment of a national home for the Jewish people in Palestine. Now, on the Jewish side, well, they're saying, we've been here thousands of years. This is our holy land. It's not just a holy land for the Jews, but it's also known as a holy land for Christians and also Muslims as well. So this is a hotly contested area for multiple religions. Now, the British Mandate in 1920 to 1948, this is when they let a lot of Jews migrate from all over the world because, of course, they're facing much persecution during World War One, with 6 million Jews killed. And they said, we need our own state. We need a place to go because we're being persecuted everywhere we go. But, of course, Palestinians, that was their home as well. So post-World War One, the League of Nations granted Britain the mandate over Palestine. During this period, Jewish immigration increased, leading to tension between Jewish and Arab communities. Then there was the UN petition plan in 1947. So United Nations proposed a plan to petition Palestine into a separate Jewish and Arab states with Jerusalem as an international city. But that didn't quite work out because the Jews wanted a lot of land, the Arabs wanted a lot of land, the Jews were going to get the majority of the land, and that ended with the declaration of the State of Israel in 1948. So Israel declared independence, which was followed by a war between Israel and neighboring Arab states. Israel emerged victorious, but the war created a lasting refugee crisis, and obviously they took majority of the Palestinian the Palestinians said were their land, but the Jews were saying, well, no, this is our holy land. We deserve to be here. We've been here thousands of years. So then there was the 6-Day War in 1967. So Israel captured the Gaza Strip, the West Bank, which the West Bank is over here. There is still lots of conflict happening in the West Bank region, as we can see here, compared to the border with the Gaza Strip and Israel. So Israel captured the Gaza Strip, West Bank, and East Jerusalem territories that are still a source of conflict today. Then there was the Yom Kippur War in 1973, which was they had the 50th anniversary of this Yom Kippur War, and the day after that, this conflict broke out. The attacks from Hamas on Israel, attack on Israel on Yom Kippur, but Israel managed to repel the attack, and that's what they're trying to do now. So also the Camp David Accords in 1978. So these agreements established a framework for future negotiations and created the Palestinian Authority to govern parts of West Bank and Gaza Strip, which is still active today. The Palestinians have control of the Gaza Strip and also the West Bank region here. Okay. Now, then there was the Oslo Accords in 1993-1995. So these agreements established a framework for future negotiations and created the Palestinian Authority to govern parts of West Bank and the Gaza Strip. Then there was the second Intifada in 2000 to 2005, a period of intensified Israeli-Palestinian violence occurred during this period. Then there was Israel disengagement from Gaza in 2005. So Israel unilaterally withdrew from the Gaza Strip but maintains a blockade, as we can see here. And this is why the Palestinians feel like, they're pretty much prisoners in this small region and feel like they're entitled to more land. And of course, the conflict is now continuing. So that was a very, very brief explanation. Of course, it goes much more in depth than that. This is a conflict that's been going on for thousands and thousands of years, with many empires ruling this land, many ethnic groups living in this land as well. So we'll go over some more recent updates on what's been happening. Tell me if the audio is fine. Okay, according to mine, it's fine. But let's go over some more recent updates. So again, I just wanted to bring everyone up to speed, because even me, yesterday, this was such quick breaking news. I wanted to get educated myself on what is really going on in this region, in the world, okay? So what's quite interesting was 2 months before this conflict broke out, there was actually massive protests in Israel as Parliament passed judicial overhaul, okay, trying to give the courts there less power. Again, I'm not saying if it's right or wrong, but maybe Hamas saw this as an opportunity when there was lots of tension in Israel between the left and the right to attack. So let's go into some of these protests here that happened a couple months ago.
But now to the crisis in Israel. The country is being swept by massive protests against a court reform plan that critics call a threat to democracy, as Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu was rushed to the hospital Sunday with a heart problem. Foreign correspondent Tom Sufi-Burge is in Jerusalem. Good morning, Tom.
George, you can hear the anger on the streets. The vote in the Israeli parliament just taking place. Protesters not able to get near the parliament because of the police, but protesters spilling right down the roads. There is real anger on the streets of Jerusalem right now. This morning, anger on the streets of Jerusalem as Israeli lawmakers pass a controversial and divisive new law, stripping Israel's Supreme Court of a key power, preventing it from striking down controversial government decisions. Earlier, angry crowds massing near the Israeli parliament, police carrying away protesters and firing water cannon to disperse crowds overnight. This weekend, former Israeli security chiefs signing a letter backing a threat from thousands of army reservists, saying they'll no longer serve when the reforms go through. And before today...
So this was very, very interesting. There was a lot of army reservists that were saying, well, look, if you pass these... this new law, we're not going to fight anymore, okay? And again, maybe Hamas saw this opportunity that a lot of reservists weren't going to fight or weren't going to report for duty. And we'll have to wait for live updates to see if most of these reservists have reported for duty. But according to the mainstream media, there have been reporting for duty, the majority of them. Now, also very interestingly, this all happens after the Biden administration released $6 billion, go ahead and adjust this here, in frozen Iran funds right before the Hamas attack on Israel. So again, some people saying, where do they get all these weapons? How do they afford it? Who knows if it did come from $6 billion in frozen funds from Iran, but that is a bit of a coincidence. So now let's go over to Biden's reaction and the world leaders' reaction to the conflict that is going on right now and their warnings.
In this moment of tragedy, I want to say to them and to the world and to terrorists everywhere that the United
Go ahead and adjust the speed here. Biden can't talk that quick.
In this moment of tragedy, I want to say to them and to the world and to terrorists everywhere that the United States stands with Israel. We will.
So, okay, he's saying there, straight off the bat, the United States stands with Israel. So if other Middle Eastern countries jump in, which, who knows, could happen, we're going to have to wait for more updates. The US may join as well.
Will not ever fail to have their back. We'll make sure that they have the help their citizens need and they can continue to defend themselves. You know, the world's seen appalling images. Thousands of rockets in the space of hours raining down on Israeli cities. When I got up this morning, started this at 7:30, 8 o'clock, my calls. Hamas terrorists crossing in Israel, killing not only Israeli soldiers, but Israeli civilians.
So yes, there has unfortunately been a lot of civilians captured in Israel and taken back into Gaza and beaten and worse.
In the street, in their homes, innocent people murdered, wounded, entire families taken hostage by Hamas. Just days after Israel marked the holiest of days in the Jewish calendar. It's unconscionable. You know, when I spoke with Prime Minister Netanyahu this morning, I told him the United States stands with the people of Israel in the face of these terrorist assaults. Israel has the right to defend itself and its people. Full stop.
So, what we need to talk about was very interesting this time compared to last time was normally Hamas would attack Israel, Israel would retaliate, and then the UN and the West would say, okay, it's time for a ceasefire, time to calm down the conflict. But it seems like Western leaders have given them pretty much the green light to send Hamas into rubble.
There's never justification for terrorist attacks. And my administration's support for Israel's security is rock solid and unwavering. Let me say this as clearly as I can. This is not a moment for any party hostile to Israel to exploit these attacks to seek advantage. The world is watching. I've also been
So that's another warning there. The world is watching. And I'll go over Iran and some other Middle Eastern leaders' response as well in a moment.
Contact with the King of Jordan, spoken with members of Congress, directed my national security team to engage with their Israeli counterparts, military to military, intelligence to intelligence, diplomat to diplomat, to make sure Israel has what it needs. I've also directed my team to remain in constant contact with leaders throughout the region, including Egypt, Turkey, Qatar, Saudi Arabia, Jordan, Oman, the UAE, as well as our European partners and the Palestinian Authority. It's also a terrible tragedy on a human level. It's hurting innocent people. Seeing the lives that have been broken by this, the families torn apart, it's heartbreaking. And Jill and I are praying for those families who've been impacted by this violence. We grieve with those who've lost their loved ones, lost a piece of their soul. We have hope for swift recovery for many who have been wounded. But we're going to remain in close touch with Prime Minister. I personally am going to remain in close contact with Prime Minister Netanyahu as this situation continues to develop. And let there be no mistake, the United States stands with the state of Israel.
So the United States has made their statement. They stand with the state of Israel, which of course is no surprise.
We have from the moment the United States became the first nation to recognize Israel 11 minutes after its founding 75 years ago. Thank you very much.
Okay, now let's go to some reaction from some other Western and world leaders.
The surprise attack stunned Israel and the world, setting off swift condemnation from Western leaders, including Prime Minister Justin Trudeau. He tweeted, "Canada strongly condemns the current terrorist attacks against Israel. We stand with Israel and fully support its right to defend itself."
But it's funny, they say this, but then they'll literally applauded a Nazi just the other week in Canadian Parliament.
Opposition leader Pierre Poilievre also tweeted, "I unequivocally condemn the invasion of Israel by Hamas terrorists and the sadistic violence they have subsequently carried out against innocent civilians."
We are facing a horrendous terrorist attack that has really no precedent, I think, in our region or in the history.
British Prime Minister Rishi Sunak expressed his shock. So did Britain's Foreign Secretary.
And the UK completely condemns these terrorist acts against Israel, and we support Israel's right to self-defense.
President
So again, all Western leaders, they're all giving them the green light to go ahead.
of the European Union Commission, Ursula von der Leyen, called the Hamas incursion pure terrorism.
C'est purement du terrorisme.
French leader Emmanuel Macron discussed the situation with the Prime Minister of Israel and the President of the Palestinian Authority and pledged his commitment to Israel's security. A stark contrast to the scenes unfolding in Tehran.
So of course, Tehran, Iran, Tehran's Iran's capital city, they were celebrating this, and who knows if they helped Hamas.
Celebrations erupted in the streets after the carefully coordinated attack by Hamas, which is backed by the Iranian regime. Next door in
Okay, so they say they're backed by the Iranian regime.
Turkey, President Erdogan pleaded for restraint,
İsrail'de meydana gelen hadiseler ışığında
urging all sides to avoid being impulsive and heightening tensions. The Turks have recently warmed ties with Israel, so have the Saudis, who are in negotiations brokered by the U.S.
So this is very, very interesting. Israel and Saudis were just negotiating peace deals and were going to start collaborating more economically together. But wait till you see Saudi Arabia's response to this on Palestinian side.
To normalize relations with the Israeli government. In a statement, the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia renewed its calls for a two-state solution and says it made repeated warnings of the dangers as a result of the continued occupation and the deprivation of Palestinian people and their...
So again, Saudi Arabia, they're siding with the Palestinians, saying that they do have legitimate rights to land, and I'm sure you can read the two-state solution would be probably the best thing they can do, but unfortunately that's not going to happen anytime soon.
Legitimate rights. Palestinian leaders say for too long the conflict has been ignored.
The world community has done nothing to stop an occupation that has become the longest in modern history.
The United Nations is urging maximum restraint, appealing to both sides to de-escalate and stop further bloodshed.
Again, let's go over to that's the West reaction. They're condemning what's going on, but in the Middle East, a lot of countries are supporting Hamas and Palestine. So we want to try to get both sides of the story here, everyone. Trying to give you guys an unbiased update. So again, people in Istanbul, Turkey celebrate Hamas attack on Israel at Faith Mosque.
Hamas'a selam, direnişe devam. Hamas'a selam, direnişe devam. Hamas'a selam, direnişe devam. Hamas'a.
Okay, so that's that update. And then we get the update from Iran here. Their statement. So Iran says attack on Israel is Palestinian self-defense. So, of course, there's been, wrong done on both sides. There's been mistreatment of Palestinians from Israel, and also attacks on Israel from Gaza, Palestinians, Hamas, etc. But more want to get their statement here. So Iran considers that the Zionist Occupy regime and its well-known supporters are responsible for the violence and killing against Palestinians, and call on Islamic countries to support the rights of the Palestinian people. So also top advisor to Supreme Leader Ayatollah, I don't know how to pronounce that name, Khamenei, said in a statement, this victorious operation will certainly expedite the collapse of the Zionist regime and the promise its imminent annihilation, the semi-official news agency FARS reported. So again, Iran wants complete annihilation of what they call the Zionist regime in Israel. So a lot of people are saying that they're the ones backing Hamas. And again, that comes after the release of $6 billion in frozen funds from the Biden administration. Now, let's also go up to more celebrations in the Middle East in a response to the attacks here. So as you can see, the conflict in the Middle East is escalating drastically, okay, with Iran, Hezbollah in South Lebanon supporting Hamas and Gaza and Palestinians. Now, this is a very big escalation. Israel has fired artillery at southern Lebanon in response to cross-border fights. So this is now going across borders only on the second day, and who knows if Iran will get involved directly and if the US jumps in. So let's get into this update here.
Locations overnight. Gun battles raged into the night between Israeli forces and hundreds of Hamas fighters in at least 22 Israeli locations, including at least 2 where gunmen were holding hostages. Now, the hostage situation is another one, which is extremely concerning at the moment. More than 1,000 people in Israel were wounded by gunshots, or more than 5,000 after another one building collapsing after
Let's see if we can get some other updates here.
Another. It is complete state of pandemonium in Israel at the moment. Now, Israel's military said it had warned residents to evacuate before targeting the multi-story buildings used by Hamas. Israel's state-run electricity company cut the power supply to Gaza as army flares lit up the night sky. Now, Gaza officials said intense airstrikes on the coastal enclave brought the Palestinian death toll to at least 232, with nearly 1,700 people injured. The strikes started at dawn and Israel was under attack from Hamas. Now, the conflict continues to spread as Israel fired artillery in southern Lebanon. Israel said...
So yes, here's the update that attacks were done in southern Lebanon. I'll show you on the map here. We can see here on the southern border of Lebanon. So this is Lebanon, southern border. The fighting is ongoing live here.
Mortar shells were first fired from Lebanon into northern Israel, and that their strikes were only retaliatory. Lebanon's Hezbollah group confirmed the shelling, and they confirmed hitting Israel from across the border. Now, the Israeli army said it was still engaged in live gun battles in a string of Israel locations overnight. Gun battles raged into the night between Israeli forces and hundreds of Hamas fighters in at least 22 Israeli locations, including at least 2 where gunmen were holding hostages.
So let's go into some other updates here. Those are very upsetting scenes there from the hostages being taken place. I don't really want to play that here. If you want to look, you can go watch yourself. So here's footage from the Iron Dome. It has been doing pretty well, but pretty much Hamas strategy has been to overwhelm the Iron Dome, and they've launched nearly 5,000 rockets, and they can't defend against every single rocket that comes through because, again, they're overwhelmed, but it is doing a pretty good job at the moment. So let's go ahead and look at some scenes here. Don't want to play that corny music. So how did they do it? So isn't this crazy, everyone? The kind of technology that modern warfare has today and how bad the next world war will be. So over 5,000 rockets were fired toward Israel. The Gaza Strip in just 20 minutes after it declared operation in Al-Aqsa flood. With this, Israel was at war following surprise attacks by the Hamas group. So how did Hamas outfox the Iron Dome? So the Iron Dome, one of the world's best air defense system in the world, was again in action. Dramatic video showed the burst of flares as the Iron Dome destroyed rockets mid-air. However, the near-perfect Iron Dome got overpowered by a rocket barrage from Hamas. For several years, Hamas has been trying to find a weakness in the Iron Dome system, and it's looked like they did. So they've been largely successful in doing so now by overwhelming the system. So salvo attack, making it difficult for the control system to intercept all the attacks. So that's what's going on with the Iron Dome. Let's also go on to some live update with what's going on with the conflict. So this is day 2. Hamas, let's go ahead and check the speed here, slow it down. It's going a bit too quick on 2 times speed. So they've used new short-term range rocket system called Rajam. The Palestinian militant group attacked. On day 2 of the Israel-Palestinian war, the Palestinian militant group Hamas has upgraded its attacks. So let's get into some more live updates with what's going on with the conflict here. So Hamas, we'll go ahead and adjust this here. Hamas says fierce fighting continues inside Israel. Meanwhile, the Israeli militant group says hundreds of Palestinian gunmen have been killed and dozens have been taken prisoner. Fighting is now in its second day after Hamas launched a staggering and unexpected attack on Israel at the dawn on Saturday, launching rockets, breaching the border, and taking Israeli captives back into the Gaza Strip. The Israeli embassy in the United States says Hamas fighters have kidnapped 100 Israeli citizens and soldiers. Israel retaliated to the attack by launching airstrikes on target in Gaza. The Palestinian Health Minister says the airstrikes have killed 313 Palestinians so far and wounded nearly 2,000. So it seems like the retaliation attacks by Israel have killed more Palestinians than Palestinians have killed Israelis. So to the north, the Hezbollah claimed responsibility at about 6 a.m. local time for firing mortar into Israel-occupied land near the Lebanese border. Israel's responded to those strikes with artillery fire into southern Lebanon. So we got some photographs here, unfortunately, of the wreckage. Let's go ahead and move myself here. We can see of the updates. Very unfortunate that, you know, a lot of people just want to live their lives. They don't want to get involved in this conflict. And a lot of civilians and infrastructure, people's homes, children will be affected by this conflict. Which again, not trying to take any sides, trying to give you guys an unbiased update to what's going on. Let's go over to some more recent updates. So, UN working to contain situation after Hezbollah targets Israel from Lebanon. So thanks for the super chat, G-Man. I'll go ahead and move myself here. The United Nations peacekeeping mission in southern Lebanon says it is working to contain the situation after Israel fired into southern Lebanon in an exchange with Hezbollah on Sunday morning. The UN IFIL mission said it had detected several rockets fired from southern Lebanon toward Israeli-occupied territory on Sunday, as well as artillery fire from Israel into Lebanon in response. So we can see on this map here the border where the fighting is going on between Hezbollah and Israeli IDF. Let's go on to some other updates. So it's again just going on. There's multiple exchanges happening at the Lebanon border, which we can see here. This is live updates of the fighting that's going on. I can refresh this and try to get updates. So Lebanese media flare bombs were launched on the Lebanese-Israeli border and intense Israeli aircraft overflight. So this conflict is unfortunately spreading. Let's see what some of the latest updates are here. So this is just 4 hours ago. 5 soldiers from the Army's elite forces were injured by Palestinian militants, bullets during clashes in Kibbutz, but is still controlled by, Hamas. Some more updates. So again, on the markets, how this affects the markets, all eyes will be on the oil markets as the markets prepare to reopen. So the Asian markets will open in about 11 hours. Thanks for that super chat, Zach Ryan. And we'll see what happens to the price of oil. Again, this will affect the markets one way or another because war, as we know, is very inflationary. Countries have to print money to fund these conflicts. And if it does start to affect Iran and the supply of oil, we could see the price of oil spike, and that have consequences across all financial markets if the Federal Reserve has to keep on lifting interest rates. So as all traders prepare for the market open after sudden eruption of violence in Israel, one key question is, will the conflict spread to the rest of the region? Again, if it does, that will affect the oil markets more. As of right now, it may not affect the oil markets so much, but if it does spread throughout the Middle East, it definitely will. So crude traders don't expect a massive price surge as there's no immediate threat to supply, but all eyes are on Iran, a major oil producer and key backer of Hamas, which launched the unprecedented assault on Israel Saturday. So again, I'll give you guys an update in about 11-12 hours on what happens with the oil markets when that opens. Let's go ahead and get some more updates here. So desperate Israeli parents search for missing children, which again, very sad news, what's happening with both sides, lots of children affected. Buffalo, thanks for that. Thanks for that super chat. So Palestinians search for loved ones as Israel pounds Gaza. And this is unfortunate retaliation from Israel, which is going to really send Gaza to rubble. So Israeli airstrikes on Gaza began soon after Hamas attack and continued overnight into Sunday, destroying the group's offices and training camps, but also houses and other buildings. Hamas said Israel had cut off water to some areas, and the Palestinian health officials, as we went over, 313 people have been killed in Gaza, nearly 2,000 wounded in retaliatory strikes. So black smoke, orange flashes and sparks lit the sky from explosion. Israeli drones could also be heard overhead. So this is about an hour ago. Questions over Israel's next move. So a major question now is whether Israel will launch a ground assault in Gaza. So right now there's just been assaults from the air, but will there be a ground assault? A move that in the past has brought intensified casualties. So the Hamas attack on Israel at dawn on Saturday has so far claimed the lives of more than 300 Israelis, according to officials, with almost 2,000 more injured and dozens taken captive into Gaza. And Palestinian officials report similar casualty numbers from Israel retaliatory strikes. So again, casualties and wounded seem to be pretty close, according to official numbers coming out at the moment. Again, another live update as of about an hour and a half ago. Defense chiefs in spotlight over devastating intelligence failure. That's right. This was a devastating intelligence failure, huge failure on part of Israel intelligence. Not sure how they failed again. This is the day after the 50th anniversary. A lot of people were saying because it was Shabbat, the Sabbath in Israel, they were saying people were resting. I don't know if that is a good enough excuse. I think they still would have been alert, or should still be alert, even on the Sabbath, because of course they would know that if they weren't alert on Sabbath, if they did that every Sabbath, then the Hamas groups would just take advantage of that. So as Israel reeled from deadly attack by Hamas militants who broke through barriers around Gaza and roamed at will, killing tons of civilians in Israel towns and taking others captive, defense chief faced growing questions over how the disaster could have happened. Again, some people were saying maybe it was deliberate so they could retaliate and take more land. Who knows as of right now? A day after the 50th anniversary of the start of the 1973 Yom Kippur War, when Israel forces were caught off guard by Syria and Egyptian tank columns, the military appeared once again to have been surprised by a sudden attack. Comments saying it looks quite similar to what happened at that time. As we can see, Israel was completely surprised, they said. And there's just more comments. Let's see, we've got one update now. Wow. Okay, this just in, guys. This is just breaking news as of right now. Unfortunately, Israel media says the death toll has risen to 600. Again, this is the unfortunate devastation of war, and why I hope peace does come to the region very, very soon. But unfortunately, I don't think that's going to happen. So several Israeli media outlets are reporting the death toll from Hamas wide-ranging incursion into Israel has risen to 600. Cowan Public Broadcaster Channel 12, as well as Haaretz and Times of Israel newspaper reported the toll late Sunday. The number is significantly higher than the 350 that has been widely reported, confirmed by reliable Israeli sources. As reported by Nine's Lucy Cormack, Israeli soldiers and civilians have been kidnapped, with harrowing videos spreading online depicting those captives in what has quickly become deadliest attack on Israel's soil in decades. So everyone, again, for those who just joined, feel free to go ahead and rewatch. I've just gave a brief update at the beginning on who is Hamas. A very, very brief summary of how the conflict started and the history of the conflicts, which again, it could take hours and hours and hours to go over it, but I gave a very quick summary at the start. This also started when there's been huge protests in Israel over the parliament passing new judicial overhaul. This has happened after there was $6 billion unfrozen by the Biden administration. Obviously, the West has condemned the attacks and given the green light for Israel to retaliate, and they're retaliating forcibly with hundreds, most likely thousands of Palestinians killed. Iran, Istanbul, Turkey has celebrated the attacks. Hezbollah in southern Lebanon is trying to join the attack on the northern border of Israel and southern border of Iran. And the conflict continues, and it looks like it's only going to get worse. We have to see if more countries in the Middle East join. If they do, I fear that the West may join as well. But we'll have to continue to watch this situation unfold, and I'll keep you all updated. So thanks for watching, everyone. I'll see you all in the next video.